Welcome to Bookish and Beyond, where nonfiction comes to life. In each episode, we break down the world's most impactful books, from self-help to biographies. We dive into key takeaways, author insights, and modern parallels. Subscribers get exclusive access to our book summary, study guide, and timeline PDF, everything you need to go deeper. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Let's explore the books that change the way we think. This is Bookish and Beyond.
Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. You know how we do it here. We take a topic, we dig deep, and we bring back those insights that can really make a difference.
And today we're talking patience and gratitude.
Big concepts, for sure. And we're looking at them through the lens of a pretty fascinating book called, well, Patience and Gratitude.
By the 13th, 14th century scholar Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyyah.
Exactly. So, before we jump in, can you give us a little context about this guy and why his work still matters all these centuries later?
Well, first things first, this book is actually an abridged translation. The original title, if you want to try and wrap your tongue around it, is Udat as-Sabirin wa Dakirat ash-Shakirin. But Patience and Gratitude definitely gets the point across. Now, about the author, Ibn Qayyim. He was living in, well, a really tough time. Mongol invasion, societal upheavals, you name it. But in the midst of all that chaos, he wrote some of the most profound things about the human condition. Really makes you think about how our environment shapes our perspective, doesn't it?
It does. Like, can real wisdom come from going through tough times? And how can we, in our modern world, with all its distractions and pressures, apply his insights about dealing with challenges and finding that peace through gratitude?
Right. And the translator even mentions how relevant this book is to our lives today. How we often feel overwhelmed, just like people did back then. Ibn Qayyim's insights are, if anything, more important now than ever.
Okay, so let's dive in. The book starts by defining patience, sabr, in Arabic, and it turns out it's a lot more than just sitting quietly and waiting.
Oh, absolutely. Sabr, the word itself, it comes from a root that means like to detain, to refrain, to stop. So it's really about restraint, but like emotional and spiritual restraint.
So not gritting your teeth and bearing it, but more like shaping your inner response to something. That's interesting.
Exactly. And Ibn Qayyim brings in all these different scholarly definitions, which really flesh out the idea. For example, Abu Uthman said patience is training yourself to handle difficulties, while Amr ibn Uthman al-Makki defined it as calm acceptance of trials without complaint.
Wait, so we can't even complain?
Oh, hold on. Islam recognizes our human need to vent sometimes. The key is who you're complaining to Allah. Totally fine. We see prophets like Yaqub and Ayub doing that in the Quran, but complaining to people, that goes against the whole idea of patience.
Oh, okay. So it's about directing your emotions in the right way.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that life has its ups and downs, but maintaining your inner balance. Like the Prophet Muhammad Asas said in a prayer, if you are not angry with me, then I do not care what happens to me, but still I would rather have your blessings and your favor. Really sums it up. Right?
It does. So is all patience like created equal, or does it look different in different situations?
Great question. Ibn Qayyim talks about a whole spectrum of patience. 4 types, actually.
Okay, 4 types of patience. I'm listening.
Okay, so you've got physical patience and you've got psychological patience. And each of those can be either by choice or without choice.
Give me an example.
Okay, so like think about pushing through a tough workout. That's physical patience and you're choosing to do it. But then there's dealing with an illness, which is also physical patience, but you don't really have a choice, right?
And I'm guessing psychological patience follows the same kind of pattern.
Exactly. So choosing to resist, like a really delicious dessert, that's psychological patience, and you're making that choice. But having to cope with being separated from someone you love, that's psychological patience, but not by choice.
So sometimes we're consciously being patient, and other times it's more of a reaction to what life throws at us. Interesting. But does everyone experience patience the same way?
Good point. Ibn Qayyim distinguishes between human patience and the patience of, say, animals. Animals, he says, only experience the types of patience where there's no choice involved. But humans, we can choose to be patient. That's what sets us apart.
It's like we have this higher level of awareness and control over our responses, even when things are tough.
Precisely. And Ibn al-Qayyim even touches on patience as it relates to, like, jinn and angels. Jinn, like humans, have those emotional, spiritual struggles, so their patience is about navigating that. Angels, on the other hand, they don't have those desires to grapple with, so it's a totally different experience.
Patience all over creation, but in different forms. Fascinating.
And to illustrate this, Ibn al-Qayyim uses this really striking analogy. He says, a person whose patience is greater than their desires is like an angel, but a person ruled by their desires, they're like a devil. Powerful image, isn't it?
It is. So is it fair to say that we're all kind of in this constant internal battle between our better selves and our desires?
You could definitely say that. Ibn al-Qayyim describes it as this battle between reason and religion on one side and whims and desires on the other. And where does this battle take place? In the human heart.
The heart as a battlefield. I like that imagery. So who usually wins?
Well, Ibn al-Qayyim actually lays out 3 possible outcomes. First, you have the ideal scenario. Reason and religion win. And that leads to victory both in this life and in the hereafter.
Sounds good to me.
Oh.
But I'm guessing it's not always that straightforward.
Unfortunately not. The second outcome is when those whims and desires take over. And that leads to giving in, to temptation, to bad choices. And Ibn al-Qayyim even gives examples of how people rationalize those bad decisions. We've all been there. Right?
Oh, yeah, those moments of weakness.
And then there's the third outcome, which honestly I think resonates with most people. It's the constant struggle. Sometimes reason wins, sometimes desire wins. It's a back and forth battle.
That sounds very familiar. So the big question is, how can we become more patient in our daily lives? Does Ibn al-Qayyim offer any practical advice for strengthening that patience muscle?
He does. And thankfully, it's not all, philosophical theory. He provides a really practical guide. And it boils down to 2 things: knowledge and action.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
First, you need knowledge. Deep understanding. You have to really grasp the benefits of following Allah's commands and the harm that comes from doing the things that are forbidden. Knowledge is power, as they say.
Right. But what about the action part? What does that look like?
Action is about weakening the hold of those desires and strengthening the forces of reason and religion. And he even gives specific steps for combating certain desires.
Like what?
Well, for example, if you're struggling with, say, the desire for adultery, he suggests things like changing your diet, reducing foods that increase desire, lowering your gaze, to avoid those visual temptations, and really reflecting on the consequences, both worldly and spiritual.
Interesting. So it's like you understand the root of the desire and then you take concrete steps to counteract it.
Yeah.
But what if it's not a specific desire? What if you're just struggling with a general lack of patience?
He's got you covered there, too. Ibn al-Qayyim lists 14 weapons to boost reason and religion. Each one is designed to, fortify your resolve.
14 weapons. That's quite the arsenal.
Right. Things like remembering Allah's greatness, acting out of love for Allah, contemplating his blessings, thinking about the temporary nature of this life. It's about strengthening yourself from the inside out.
I can see how each of those could really shift your perspective. But, there's got to be more to this whole patience thing, right?
You're on the right track. Remember how we said patience is half of faith, or iman?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Ibn al-Qayyim says the other half is gratitude, shukr. They go hand in hand.
Ah, gratitude. I was wondering when that would come into play. It seems like a natural complement to patience. How does Ibn al-Qayyim connect them?
That's where his insight really shines. He argues that they're 2 sides of the same coin, interconnected virtues. When you practice both, you get this beautiful balance in life.
So it's not just about enduring hardship, but also appreciating the good things, even when things are tough.
Exactly. And he emphasizes that the Quran places a huge emphasis on gratitude. Allah says that he remembers those who remember him, that true worship comes from a place of thankfulness, and that he increases his favors on those who are grateful.
It's like a positive feedback loop. The more grateful you are, the more you receive, and the more you have to be grateful for.
You got it. And here's an interesting contrast he makes. While a lot of blessings are conditional upon Allah's will, the reward for gratitude is unconditional.
So no matter what your situation is, gratitude is always possible. And it's always rewarded by Allah. That's powerful.
It is, and it makes you wonder why so many people struggle with it.
I think in today's world, it's so easy to get caught up in what we don't have. We're constantly comparing ourselves to others and feeling like we're falling behind.
That's true. And to highlight how crucial gratitude is, Ibn al-Qayyim points out that even Iblis, Satan, recognizes its power. and actively tries to turn people away from it.
If even Satan sees it as a threat, it must be pretty important. But honestly, when you're going through tough times, it can be hard to feel grateful.
We've all been there. But Ibn Qayyim reminds us that the Prophet Muhammad, say as us, was always expressing gratitude to Allah, even after being forgiven for all his sins.
Setting a high bar, for sure. So how can we cultivate more gratitude in our own lives? It can feel like a big task.
It doesn't have to be. Ibn al-Qayyim offers some practical guidance. He suggests verbally acknowledging your blessings. Just saying thank you can make a difference. Then there's expressing gratitude through your actions and lifestyle, making choices that reflect your appreciation.
So making gratitude a part of your daily life, not just a fleeting thought.
Exactly. And maybe the most important thing, recognizing Allah's blessings even when things are difficult. It's about shifting your focus, even if it's just to those small blessings.
My grandma used to say, there's always something to be grateful for, even if it's just waking up this morning.
That's beautiful, and it captures Ibn al-Qayyim's point perfectly. Gratitude isn't about denying the hardships, but choosing to see the good that's still there. It's a conscious choice, a shift in how you see the world, and it can make all the difference.
It really can. And when you combine gratitude with that steadfastness of patience, it's like you've got this solid foundation for navigating life's ups and downs.
Right. And what's so striking is how Ibn al-Qayyim brings these concepts to life using real-world examples. Like one that really stands out is his discussion of patience at the time of death.
That's a heavy topic.
Yeah.
But I imagine it's one that resonates with people across cultures and time periods.
Absolutely. And Ibn al-Qayyim approaches it with such sensitivity. He acknowledges the intense grief that comes with loss, but emphasizes that Islam calls for patience even in those moments.
So not suppressing your emotions, but kind of channeling them in a way that aligns with your faith.
Exactly. He even clarifies that crying is allowed, both before and after death. He mentions how the Prophet Muhammad, Asas, wept when he lost loved ones. And he even quotes a hadith where the Prophet, Asas, tells a grieving woman, go ahead and cry, but avoid the crying of the shaitan.
That's an interesting distinction. So it's not about denying the sadness, but about making sure that grief doesn't lead to like despair or loss of faith.
Exactly. And Ibn al-Qayyim draws a line between healthy grieving and practices that go against the teachings of Islam. He points to things like wailing, excessively praising the deceased, tearing your clothes. He sees these as customs from the time of Jahiliyyah, the pre-Islamic period.
So these were seen as holdovers from the past that didn't have a place in Islam.
Right, because he argues that those behaviors show a lack of acceptance of Allah's decree. And that goes against the whole idea of patience.
It's like they're trying to control or deny the reality of death rather than accepting it as part of Allah's plan.
Exactly. And Ibn al-Qayyim even says that those actions can harm the deceased person. He cites a hadith where the Prophet Muhammad, Ashah, says that the deceased suffers because of the wailing of the living.
Hold on a second. How can what the living do affect someone who's already passed away?
I know it might seem strange, but Ibn al-Qayyim explains that the hadith isn't saying the deceased is being punished for their family's actions. It's more that they feel that pain, that anguish that their loved ones are experiencing.
So it's like their spirit is still connected to those they left behind, and their peace is disturbed by all this excessive grief.
That's a really beautiful way to put it. And it highlights the importance of expressing our sorrow in a way that honors both our loved ones and our faith. He even gives guidance on what's okay. He says it's fine to say a few words while you're crying, as long as they're true and not said with wailing or complaining about Allah's will.
Finding that balance, right, between acknowledging the pain and maintaining that sense of acceptance and faith.
Exactly. And this whole discussion about bereavement, it really shows how connected patience and gratitude are. Even when facing death, this huge loss, we're called to be patient with Allah's plan and grateful for the time we had.
It's a reminder that even in the darkest times, there's still light, still a reason to be thankful.
Beautifully said. And Ibn al-Qayyim actually goes even further. He says that patience is half of faith, with gratitude making up the other half.
Half of faith. That's a bold statement.
It is. It shows just how important these concepts are. He gives a few reasons for this connection, but one that stands out is that faith involves both action and abstinence. Action, he says, is about following Allah's instructions, which is basically the essence of gratitude.
So gratitude isn't just a feeling, it leads to doing good deeds.
Exactly. And on the flip side, abstinence, refraining from doing wrong, that requires patience. It's about resisting those temptations and choosing the path Allah wants for us, even when it's tough.
So patience and gratitude, they're the two pillars that hold up a life of faith.
I love that analogy. And then he goes on to explain that patience isn't just for following those instructions, it's also for accepting Allah's decree, even when we don't like it or understand it.
Surrendering to Allah's will, even when it's painful.
It's a practice, for sure. And he emphasizes how intertwined patience and gratitude are with the concepts of hope and fear. He says fear should make a believer patient, while hope should lead to gratitude.
So it's about finding that balance,
Yep.
acknowledging the potential for hardship, but also trusting in Allah's goodness.
Exactly. Understanding that everything happens for a reason according to his plan.
Makes me think of that saying, everything happens for a reason.
You got it. Ibn Qayyim actually breaks down different levels of patience based on your motivation. So there's patience for the sake of Allah, hoping for his rewards and fearing his punishment. Then there's patience by the help of Allah, recognizing we can't do it on our own. And finally, patience in accepting Allah's decree, understanding that he's in control of everything.
So it's not just about being patient, but understanding why you're being patient. Your intention matters.
Absolutely. And he argues that the highest level is when you combine patience for Allah's sake with patience by his help. It's aligning your actions with your beliefs, recognizing that true strength comes from relying on Allah.
I see how this applies to so many different parts of life, whether you're dealing with a personal tragedy or struggling with a bad habit, or just navigating everyday life. Patience and gratitude seem essential for staying grounded in your faith.
They are. And Ibn Qayyim really dives deep into gratitude, devoting several chapters to how it's presented in the Quran and the Prophet's teachings.
It's not just a nice thing to have, it's a core part of Islam.
Exactly. He even points out that the Quran explicitly contrasts gratitude with ingratitude, or kufr, which is, the opposite of faith.
Lack of gratitude is seen as disbelief. That's serious.
It is. And he highlights verses that emphasize how important it is. Like Allah says, and be grateful to Allah if it is him you worship. True worship isn't just about rituals. It's about having a heart full of gratitude for what Allah has given us.
Recognizing that everything we have is a gift from him.
Exactly. And there are so many beautiful verses about the rewards of gratitude. One that always stands out to me is, if you are grateful, I will surely increase you in favor. So gratitude isn't just about receiving blessings, it attracts even more.
Gratitude as a magnet for good things. I like that.
Right. And to really drive home how important gratitude is, Ibn Qayyim compares its reward to other divine favors.
Where do you go?
Well, think about things like, relief from poverty, answered prayers, provisions, forgiveness, mercy. All these things are conditional on Allah's will. But the reward for gratitude, that's unconditional. It's guaranteed no matter what.
So no matter what's happening, you can always choose gratitude. And you'll be rewarded for it. That's reassuring.
It is. Makes you wonder why so many people struggle with it, right?
I think it's easy to get caught up in what we lack, comparing ourselves to others, feeling like we're not where we should be.
That's so true. And Ibn Qayyim suggests that Iblis, Satan, he understands how powerful gratitude is, and he tries to distract us from it.
Wow. Even Satan sees it as a threat. That says a lot.
It does. And he reminds us that the Prophet Muhammad, Sayas, was always expressing gratitude, even after being forgiven for all his sins.
A true role model. But how can we, as imperfect humans, become more grateful in our everyday lives? It feels daunting sometimes.
Ibn Qayyim gives some practical advice. He says, start by verbally acknowledging your blessings. Just saying thank you out loud can make a difference. And then there's expressing gratitude through your actions, through your lifestyle. Make choices that reflect your appreciation.
Make gratitude a part of who you are.
Exactly. And most importantly, he says, try to recognize those blessings even in times of hardship. Train yourself to see the good, even when things are tough. Shift your focus from what you lack to what you have, even if it seems small.
It's like that saying, even when it's raining, there's still sunshine above the clouds.
That's a great analogy. Ibn Qayyim shares a story about a man who lost everything he had, but still kept praising Allah.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
This man, he had it all. Wealth, luxury, you name it. And then he lost it all. But even when he had nothing left, he was still thanking Allah.
That's incredible to be that strong in the face of such a huge loss.
Right. And another man, who was also very wealthy, he asked him, "What are you praising Allah for?" And the man replied, "I'm thanking him for blessings that if someone offered me everything they owned in exchange for them, I would never give them up."
He realized that even though he'd lost his material possessions, there was still so much to be grateful for.
Exactly. And when the other man asked him what those blessings were, he said, "Can't you see? I have my eyesight, I have my tongue, my hands, my feet." It's a reminder that sometimes the things we take for granted are the biggest blessings of all.
It's so easy to get caught up in wanting more, that we forget to appreciate the simple gifts we already have.
That story really highlights how gratitude can shift your perspective, how it can bring you closer to Allah, even in the midst of difficulty. And Ibn Qayyim also emphasizes that gratitude isn't just something you think about. It needs to be reflected in your actions and even how you use your body.
How can you express gratitude with different parts of your body?
He gives specific examples of how to cultivate gratitude through your eyes, your ears, your hands, your head, even your private parts. For example, he says the gratitude of the eyes is to talk about the good things you see and stay silent about the bad things.
So focus on the positive, don't dwell on the negative.
Exactly. And he says the gratitude of the ears is to accept what's good and reject what's bad.
Be careful about what you let into your mind.
Yes. And then the gratitude of the hands, he says, is about not taking what's not yours and giving generously to those who are in need.
Using your hands for good, both in what you don't do and what you do for others.
Precisely. And he describes the gratitude of the head as seeking knowledge.
That's an interesting connection. So learning is a form of gratitude.
It is. And finally, he talks about the gratitude of our private parts. And he refers to a verse in the Quran that emphasizes chastity. Using your sexual energy in a way that honors Allah's will.
Respecting your body is a gift from Allah.
Exactly. And Ibn al-Qayyim makes it clear that true gratitude involves your whole self, not just saying the words. He compares those who only express gratitude verbally to someone who owns a garment but never actually wears it. It's not going to do them any good.
Gratitude needs to be a part of who you are, not just something you acknowledge every now and then.
That's a great way to put it. He even highlights the practice of sujud al-shukr, the prostration of gratitude. The Prophet Muhammad, SS, would do it when he received good news.
Physically bowing down to thank Allah.
Yes. And there are examples of the companions like Abu Bakr and Ka'b ibn Malik doing the same. It's a beautiful display of humility and thankfulness.
A reminder that even when we're celebrating and feeling joyful, we should remember that everything good comes from Allah.
Absolutely. And to really drive home how profound gratitude is, Ibn al-Qayyim emphasizes that even all of our good deeds combined can't repay Allah for a single blessing he's given us.
Wow. All of our good deeds can't match even one blessing.
It's a humbling thought, right? He shares this really beautiful story to illustrate this point. It's about a man who spent 50 years of his life worshiping Allah.
50 years. That's incredible dedication.
It is. And at the end of those 50 years, Allah told him that he had forgiven him.
After 50 years of worship, he was finally forgiven.
Yes. But then the man asked, Allah, what is there to forgive? I haven't done anything wrong. So to show the man how vast his blessings really are, Allah caused a nerve in the man's neck to hurt. And this pain prevented him from sleeping or praying.
Oh, no. So he was still being tested, even after all those years of devotion.
Yes. And when the pain finally went away, an angel appeared to the man and said, your Lord says to you that your 50 years of worship were to pay for the relief of your pain.
So all those years of worship just to equal the relief from that one instance of pain.
Exactly. It's a profound reminder that we can never truly repay Allah for everything he's given us.
It's like our gratitude will always fall short. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't try our best to express it.
I think that's a beautiful way to put it. And it should fill us with humility and motivate us to always seek ways to show our thankfulness.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot. The definition of patience, its connection to gratitude, the importance of both in Islam, even specific examples of how to develop these virtues. But as we start to wrap things up, what's the one big takeaway Ibn al-Qayyim wants us to remember?
I think his main message is that patience and gratitude aren't just concepts. They're practices that can transform our lives.
It's not enough to know about them. We have to live them out.
Exactly. Patience isn't just about enduring hardship. It's about choosing to respond to challenges in a way that strengthens your faith and your connection with Allah. And gratitude isn't just a feeling. It's about actively expressing that thankfulness through your words, actions, and even the way you use your body.
Making them part of who you are.
Perfectly said. And remember, this isn't about achieving perfection. It's a lifelong journey of growth.
And it sounds like it's a journey worth taking.
It is. And what strikes me is how Ibn Qayyim, he doesn't just present these concepts in like a theoretical way. He roots them in the Quran, the Hadith, the lives of the Prophet Muhammad and his companions. He shows us that patience and gratitude, they're not just, lofty ideas. They've been lived and practiced by real people throughout history.
That's a great point. He's grounding it in Islamic teachings, but the beauty of it is that these principles, they resonate beyond that. Anyone, regardless of their background, their beliefs, they can benefit from bringing more patience and gratitude into their lives.
It's like he's saying, look, if they could do it, you can too. And he even gives us those practical steps to follow, like those weapons for fighting against desires, and those concrete ways to show gratitude through different parts of your body. Exactly. He makes those big abstract ideas, he makes them real, makes them things we can actually do in our everyday lives.
Okay, so we've talked about how important patience and gratitude are, especially from an Islamic perspective. But before we wrap up, I have one more question for you. If someone's listening and they really want to work on these qualities, where should they start? What's a small step they can take today?
Well, one of the most practical pieces of advice that Ibn al-Qayyim gives is to start small. You don't have to change everything overnight. Just pick one specific area where you can practice either patience or gratitude.
Do you have an example?
Sure. Let's say you tend to get impatient in traffic. Next time you're stuck in a jam, instead of getting all frustrated, take a few deep breaths and just try to accept the situation. Or maybe you're not so good at expressing gratitude. Try to find just one thing each day to be thankful for, even if it's something small.
It's about those small changes that can build up over time, right?
Exactly. And remember, this is a process, not an event. There will be times when you lose your patience, you forget to be grateful, and that's okay. Just be kind to yourself. The important thing is to just keep practicing, keep trying to do better.
It's like building a muscle, right? It takes time and effort. So to wrap up our deep dive into patience and gratitude, let's remember the wisdom of Ibn al-Qayyim. Embrace patience as your shield against the hardships of life. And let gratitude be your compass, guiding you toward a more fulfilling life. Remember, even the smallest acts of patience and gratitude, they can create those ripples of peace and harmony, not just for yourself, but for everyone around you.
And if you want to learn more, I highly recommend checking out Ibn al-Qayyim's book, Patience and Gratitude. It's a great resource for anyone who wants to really understand these concepts and apply them in their own lives.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of patience and gratitude. As you go about your day-to-day, think about this. Where can you practice being more patient? Where can you express more gratitude? Remember, even the smallest step can make a difference.